Introduction to neuroscience. Incredible statistics. At birth, the average baby's brain is about a quarter of the size of the adult average brain. It doubles in size in the first year. It keeps growing to about 80% of adult size by the age of 3 and 90% by the age of 5. Neuroscientists focus on the brain and its impact on behavior and cognitive function. The nervous system, central and peripheral. This system is integral to every bodily function happening in you right now and at every waking moment. From the rhythm of your heartbeat to the tiniest sensation of a gentle itch, the nervous system drives all functions that contribute to your survival. Incredible statistics. A newborn baby has all the brain cells, or neurons, that they'll have for the rest of their life, but it's the connections between these cells that really make the brain work. The early childhood years are crucial for making these connections. At least 1 million new neural connections, or synapses, are made every second, more than at any other time in life. Neuroscience. What is neuroscience? Neuroscience is the study of how the nervous system develops, its structure and what it does. Anatomy of the brain. Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, cerebellum, brainstem, temporal lobe. Frontal lobe. This stops you from behaving inappropriately. It's decision making on what's right and wrong. Parietal lobe assists with interpretation of touch and the area for numbers, shapes, space and objects. Occipital lobe. This processes and interprets visual information. The cerebellum helps with balance and voluntary motor skills. The brainstem transfers information between the brain and the body, automatic functions such as heart beating and breathing. The temporal lobe assists with perception and interpretation of sound, plays a role in the recognition of objects and visual memory. In the first trimester. During the first trimester, the basic brain shape begins to form. After a few weeks, the embryo forms a neural plate. This is the foundation of the nervous system. As it grows, it gets longer and folds in on itself to become the neural tube. The bulge of the tube eventually becomes the brain, and the rest of the tube stretches into the spinal cord and develops into the rest of the nervous system. Halfway through the first trimester, the neural tube closes and separates into 3 parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. These will eventually become the special parts of the brain we looked at earlier. The forebrain will become the cerebrum, the outer layer of the brain. The midbrain will become the brainstem, and the hindbrain becomes the cerebellum. In the first trimester, the brain develops rapidly and is around half of the total weight of the fetus. The embryo becomes a fetus at week 8. By the time the baby is born, the brain is only around 10% of the total weight of the baby. Not until around 6 weeks does the electrical activity in the brain begin. This represents the first synapses beginning to form. These are the connections between the neurons and the brain cells. Over the next 21 weeks, the brain will grow at 250,000 neurons per minute. The neurons help the fetus to begin to move from 8 weeks through the mother, though the mother won't be aware of it yet. The second trimester. During the second trimester, the baby's brain directs the diaphragm and the chest muscles to contract with practice breaths. The baby also learns sucking and swallowing reflexes. At 21 weeks, the swallowing reflex allows the baby to swallow some of the amniotic fluid each day. The baby is now developing its sense of taste too. By the end of the second trimester, the brain stem is almost entirely developed. The neurons and synapses allow the baby to make voluntary, deliberate kicks. This sensory output further develops the baby's brain development. Myelination is beginning now, which is a fatty sheath coats the neurons to allow for faster information processing. This process continues into adolescence. It is believed that myelination during pregnancy is affected by the mother's mental and physical health. By the end of the second trimester, the baby will be able to detect loud noises from outside the womb. The mother may feel the baby startle at times. The baby will begin to identify the soothing sound of their mother's and partner's voice and may even turn towards the sound. Many neuroscientists believe it's important to talk, sing, read to the unborn child. At 28 weeks, fetal brainwave activity features sleep cycles including REM, the stage when dreaming occurs. Third trimester. During the third trimester, the baby's brain triples in weight. There is further rapid growth in the number of neurons and their connections with one another. The cerebral cortex begins to develop deep grooves and ridges, and the cerebrum separates into the left and right hemispheres. It now looks like a typical brain. The cerebellum, the area at the base of the brain, is the fastest growing part in the third trimester. This part is responsible for motor control, so baby will begin to move more and stretch and kick and wriggle fingers and toes. Neurons. Neurons are information messengers. They use electrical impulses and chemical signals to transmit information between different areas of the brain and between the brain and the rest of the nervous system. The baby is born with millions of neurons, but they need to develop the synapses, which are the connections, through a process called synaptogenesis, to join these neurons up to grow and develop. Each individual neuron can have thousands of synapses connecting them together. At least 1 million new synapses are formed every second during the first 3 years of life. This rapid period of synaptogenesis plays a vital role in learning, memory, and adapting in early life. Synaptogenesis continues throughout a healthy person's life. Myelination. Myelination coats and insulates the synapses in order to strengthen and protect them, to allow the nerve impulses to travel faster. This happens to those synapses or neural pathways that we use regularly. They become stronger and more effective. Blooming and pruning. One of the most prominent characteristics of the child brain development is synaptic pruning. We know from the last couple of slides that the network of synapses grows rapidly during the first year and continues to do so during toddlerhood. Life experiences will activate certain neurons, create new brain connections, and strengthen existing ones through myelination. Unused connections will eventually be eliminated during synaptic pruning in the brain. The process of pruning is when unused neurons and synapses are eliminated to increase efficiency in the remaining neurons. This process occurs between early childhood and puberty. Experiences. Early experiences that a child goes through will dictate the strength of the synapses formed in the child's brain and will support synaptogenesis. We wish that all children had opportunities to play and have positive interactions with their caregivers and their peers, but we know that that's not always the case for all children. Any experiences of trauma or difficulties with attachment will affect the development of a child's brain. On the next couple of slides, we're going to look at what everyone needs through Maslow's hierarchy of need, to exploring some of the challenges that some children face that impact on those important years of brain development. Here's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you start at the bottom, all children need physiological needs being met, such as food, water, warmth and rest. They then need to have their safety needs met, security and safety, belongingness and love needs, intimate relationships and friends. They have their esteem needs met, prestige and feeling of accomplishment, so that they may formally reach self-actualization. That's achieving one's full potential, including creative activities. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory of motivation which states that the 5 categories of human needs dictate an individual's behavior. Those needs are physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. Attachment. If you have positive experiences, you learn to feel that you're lovable and worthy and effective, and others are available, loving, and interested and responsive. If you have negative experiences, you feel unlovable, uninteresting, unvalued, and ineffective, and learn that others are unavailable, neglectful, rejecting, unresponsive, or even hostile. Secure early attachments are so important for all children that first attachment relationships between the child and the mother sets the tone for their future relationships and gives them an understanding of what subsequent relationships might be like. The diagram illustrates the importance of having positive attachments and the impact it has on the child's feelings of self-worth and how they view the other relationships they have in the future. We can't change the past for children, but through our positive and supportive relationships with the child, we can provide and support, nurture and love through our relationships with them. This in turn will help them to change their perceptions of relationships for the better. Adverse childhood experiences. The 10 widely recognized ACEs are identified in a US study from the 1990s, and these are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, emotional neglect or physical neglect. There are adults with alcohol and drug problems. There are adults with mental health problems. There is domestic violence. There are adults who have spent time in prison, and the parents have separated. Self-regulation. In order for us to understand self-regulation, we need to be aware that co-regulation must come first for our children, and the way we co-regulate teaches children how to self-regulate. Sympathetic nervous system. This controls our response to a perceived threat or danger and prepares us to act upon it. When the brain perceives danger, it sends warning signals down the spinal cord into the nerve fibers that connect to the glands and organs. Stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline are released into the bloodstream. This causes your heart to pump faster, breathing become more rapid, and pupils expand. Sometimes these changes help us to get out of a dangerous situation, fight or flight. However, repeated stressful situations are not good for the mind or body. Exposure to stress and trauma can interrupt the healthy development of a child's brain. Parasympathetic nervous system. The opposite. This calms the body down by slowing the heart rate and breathing down. This also calms our digestive system down and enables us to rest and regain energy. Rest and digest response. Helps the mind and body to resist or recover from the effects of the sympathetic nervous system. Think of the brain like a staircase. The sympathetic downstairs and the parasympathetic upstairs part of the brain are connected by a network of neurons and synapses carrying information to other parts of the brain. Both parts need to work well together for it to function well. Many young children's upstairs and downstairs brains struggle to work together. Often the downstairs brain overwhelms the upstairs brain and takes over control. Building self-regulation. Co-regulation is defined as warm and responsive interactions that provide the support, coaching and modelling children need to understand, express and modulate their thoughts, feelings and behaviours. The feelings and behaviours of people in close proximity to us directly impact how we feel and respond to our own emotions. When children become upset, if those around them stay calm, demonstrating how to calm down, the child can calm down quicker. Children pick up the moods of others around them. When people around us are behaving a certain way, we can be directly affected, responding both internally and externally. If confrontation is directed at you, you may use your own strategies to bring yourself back to calm, such as deep breathing, talking to a friend, going for a run, etc. We're all different, and most of us have found out ways to work for us. However, children may not be able to self-regulate, especially when they're very young, and will need our support. So what is co-regulation? The definition of co-regulation is the ability to regulate emotions and behaviours, to soothe and manage stressing internal sensory input or external situations with the support and direction of a connecting adult. Co-regulation is nurturing connections of another individual that supports regulation needs through the use of strategies, tools and calming techniques in order to self-soothe or respond to times of stress. Co-regulation and self-regulation are part of the developmental process. In order to move from co-regulation to self-regulation, the child will need emotional intelligence and good social understanding. All of this is part of typical development. Self-regulation for the adult. What about our own self-regulation as adults? The first step is to ensure that you as a parent, a carer, a key person or a teacher are regulated. To co-regulate successfully, caregivers will need to pay attention to their own feelings and reactions during stressful interactions with the child. Pay attention to their own thoughts and beliefs about why the child is behaving the way they do, and use strategies to self-calm and respond effectively and compassionately. Take a moment to check in with yourself. You can't support a child back to calm if you're not calm yourself. How to co-regulate. Provide warm, responsive relationship. Teach, coach self-regulation skills and structure the environment. When children learn to self-regulate, they are learning to manage their thoughts, feelings and behaviours. Self-regulation is not self-control. In fact, self-regulation is what makes self-control possible. Regulation senses: proprioceptive, interoceptive and vestibular. These senses help us to regulate our sensory systems and are primary for attention, listening and concentration. Proprioception, which is understanding where your body is in relation to the space around them. A constant need to move, fidget, fiddle, seeking out pressure and movement. Interoception. This refers to the internal senses relating to your bodily functions. Children with sensory processing differences do not recognize these in the same way as others do, so will need extra support to address their needs. Their difficulties in recognizing pain, pressure, temperature, fullness of stomach and bladder and bowel control. Vestibular balance. Vestibular system sends messages to your brain and balances the fluid in your vestibular system when you move your head up and down, side to side, like a spirit level. It informs us of our position in our head, which way we are up, and direction and speed of movement. If our system is different, we will need to compensate for it or avoid or seek. Children with additional needs may have difficulties with their development, their understanding, their communication, or sensory. A dysregulated child may be distracted or distracting, have meltdowns that last for a long time, find it hard to cope with change, struggle with transitions, display sensory seeking behaviours, have extreme emotions, and struggle to manage in the environment. Considerations. Think whether it's something that they won't do or something that they can't do. How do you feel today? How do you feel about the child? And what are the child's experiences? Thank you for listening. Here are my contact details. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.